Welcome to the Crop Insurance Podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of crop insurance. I'm your host, Mike Rydell, a third-generation crop insurance agent, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this educational journey. At our family-owned and operated business, we've been providing crop insurance expertise for generations. Our goal here is simple, to educate our listeners. Crop insurance can be complex and overwhelming, but I believe that understanding it is crucial for every farmer. So whether you're a seasoned farmer looking to stay updated or a newcomer seeking guidance, this podcast is for you. Welcome to today's podcast, brought to you by Crop West Insurance Incorporated, your agent-friendly crop insurance group. Calling all crop insurance agents. Looking to level up your agency and boost your bottom line? Crop West Insurance has the solution you've been searching for. With their proven track record of success and a range of benefits, including increased commissions, specialized training, and access to exclusive resources, they are committed to helping you reach new heights of success. Join their community of agents today and let Crop West Insurance be your driving force in the crop insurance industry. For more information, please head on over to their website at cropwestinsurance.com. Crop West Insurance Incorporated is an equal opportunity provider and employer. Welcome back to another episode of the Crop Insurance Podcast, where we dive deep into the ins and outs of protecting your livelihood through smart insurance practices. I'm your host, Mike Rydell, and today we're going to be tackling a topic that may seem daunting, but it's crucial for every farmer and rancher out there. And that's keeping track of your production records. From a very high level, you need to understand that you need to be able to track your production records from your field to the final settlement sheet and everything in between. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the reasons why you need to do this and what are some steps you can take to be compliant with your federal crop insurance policy. I find that it's always best to start with the why when looking at something. While there are many reasons why you should track your production, there are two that stick out the most to me. The first one is establishing your APH databases, and the second is preparing yourself for a loss and or an audit. So in establishing your APH databases, this is going to vary from farm to farm. Now, it'd be a good idea for you to go back and listen to our episode on unit structure in Season 1. It was Episode 4. And our episode on actual production histories and approved yields, and that's on Season 1, Episode 1. So in those episodes, we go into quite a bit more detail on what APH databases are, approved yields, and unit structures, and why it's important to have those. Now, we also talk about even if you are in an enterprise unit setup, you still are most likely tracking all of your production in individual databases. Now, why this is relevant when it comes to harvest and tracking your production is that if you don't keep track of your production down to the field, you're going to run the risk of losing that unit structure or that database structure. This will be incredibly important when it comes to figuring out your coverage and potential losses. Because if you are not able to track that production from the field to the bin to the elevator and everything in between, you could potentially lose that unit structure, and that will adversely affect your loss and or audit situation. And that brings us to our second why. It's preparing yourself for a potential loss and or audit situation. So there are many rules in federal crop about tracking your production, also known as keeping contemporaneous production records. If your records are incomplete or unclear, then the loss and or audit can become a lot more complicated, and the payments you're counting on could be delayed, they could be reduced, and sometimes in an audit, in extreme situations, you could end up having to pay back previous year's loss payments. Now, while that last example is pretty extreme, I have seen it happen. So you must keep accurate records and have the paperwork to back those records up. So what kind of records do you need to keep? Well, let's break it down. Every record you keep should include the following information. Now keep in mind some of it's fairly obvious and some of it's not so obvious. The first obvious one is you need to make sure that your name is clearly identified on every document. A crop type, so you need to specify what type of crop it is that your record pertains to, and the field identification. So you need to include the unit or field identification from which the production is harvested. Now, if you want to do yourself a huge favor, or this is a pro tip here, when you document the field identification on any of your load records or tickets, make sure you identify it with your federal crop insurance unit number if you have that information. Now, you may call it home place as a unit. Well, if you go onto your federal crop insurance policy and figure out what that unit number is, that's going to help you be a little more streamlined when it comes to a loss situation or an audit situation. Now, on your weight records for each load, you're going to obviously need to have the weight and be able to document how you're tracking that depending on what type of conveyance you're using. So check with your crop insurance agent to make sure you're compliant based on what type of conveyance you're using. You're obviously going to need to have the date of when that load was taken. That exact date needs to be on those load records. Your load number. Now, if your scale doesn't automatically assign you a load number, it's your responsibility to create and record one. Now, when it comes to acceptable methods of measurement, so how do you measure and record your yields in a way that's acceptable by your insurance company? There are several methods, but they must meet specific criteria in order to be valid. You can use farm scales, combine monitors, truck records, or grain carts, but here's the key. Whatever method you choose, your records must account for all of the production. If you took the grain to the local elevator right out of the field, you will need the settlement sheets reflecting this. If you stored the grain on the farm, you will need to mark the grain bins or be able to show where the grain went. Think grain bags, Quonsets, flat storage, etc., as the adjuster will be measuring the storage. In the event of a current crop year loss, things get a little simpler as that production is either on hand or has been sold recently, so you have the records readily available in theory. However, when you're looking for information from 3 crop years ago, things can get complicated if you don't have a good system in place. Now, there is no one system that is the standard that federal crop insurance goes by. You just need to make sure that whatever your system is, you make sure it's consistent and that you keep your records updated. A little extra work during harvest and when you market your grain can go a long ways towards making a potential crop insurance loss and or audit process go much smoother. Now, one item we didn't touch on this episode is the precision farming, and we're going to have an episode later on that dives a little deeper into this subject. But just know that precision farming tools can provide highly accurate data that aligns with the requirements of federal crop insurance companies. By integrating these types of tools in your record-keeping process, you're not only making your life easier, but you're also ensuring that your data is reliable, accurate, and audit-ready. We'll discuss this a little more in depth in a later episode. At the end of the day, it's just all about being prepared the best way to ensure that a crop insurance loss and or audit doesn't become a stressful ordeal. Keep your records detailed, organized, and up to date. By doing this, you're going to make the process go a lot smoother for both you and the adjuster. Remember, the goal of the federal crop insurance program is to protect your livelihood from the unpredictable forces of nature. And a well-handled loss or audit is just part of making sure that the protection is as strong as possible. So take these tips to heart and implement them in your daily operations, and you'll be ready for whatever comes your way. That's all for today's episode. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Crop Insurance Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And as always, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Until next time, this is Mike Rydell, helping you navigate the world of crop insurance with confidence. Stay safe out there and keep those records in order. From my family to yours, thank you very much for listening. I sincerely hope that this presentation has been instrumental in enhancing your understanding of federal crop insurance. If you find value in our podcast, we kindly encourage you to subscribe and spread the word among your friends and neighbors. To access further information, please visit our website at thecropinsurancepodcast.com, where you'll find the latest podcast episodes, articles, and exciting new features conveniently located in one place. This information is not all-inclusive and is meant to be used only as general guidelines for educational purposes. For additional information, please see crop provisions, reference the Crop Insurance Handbook or Loss Adjustment Manual, or contact your crop insurance agent. This institution is an equal opportunity provider and employer.